All right, good morning. My name is Kirsten Keith, and I have the honor of being on the Menlo Park City Council, and I was the mayor in 2012. So it's a pleasure to be here today with all of you here in Menlo Park, and thank you so much for coming. I know we have many elected officials in the audience, and they will be introduced by Congresswoman Spear in a few moments. So I wanted to take a moment just to welcome you here and to thank you to the Congresswoman Spear for hosting this economic summit today here in Menlo Park. I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about Menlo Park and where we are. We're in Belhaven. This is part of Menlo Park. It's our part of Menlo Park that's east of 101. And here in Belhaven, we did do a demographic study that I wanted to highlight. And because part of the economic summit, what we're going to be talking about today are jobs, housing, education, all those things that are so important for women and for men, for everybody. So when you look here in Belhaven, the population of Belhaven is about 6,000 people. And we did our demographic study. And according to our demographic study, 28.4% of Belhaven population holds a diploma, a high school diploma. So it's lower than the rest of Menlo Park. And the goal, obviously, is to get more people to have their high school diploma. And then to go on to college. And whatever college that may be, community college, which we'll have representatives here and a professor here from Kenyatta Community College, but we have wonderful community colleges to take advantage of. So it's very important to make sure that our kids get a good education in middle school, high school, and then go on to community colleges or colleges, four-year colleges. Very important. When we look at the fourth grade reading skills for Belhaven, it's lower than the rest of California. That's not acceptable. It's something else we really have to improve on. We must. Because if you can't read, you all know, if you can't read, you can't fill out an application, you can't do so many things. You have to be able to read to get along in life. The other point I wanted to bring was Belhaven resident occupation by job sector. When we look at the job sector, it's 42% in service jobs. And I think something we'll be talking about here is health insurance, housing, and how you need to have a job that provides those things. We have great resources at the tables for you to talk to everybody here today. Job Train is here. Obviously, the best way to have a job is to be trained for a job. At Job Train, there are so many opportunities to get certifications in all sorts of areas, from the health food industry to solar panel installation to whatever. So it's a great resource. We have HEART here, which helps people get housing, and we have many tables here, so please take advantage of those. And then I want to just highlight, we did an action plan, the council did, for Belhaven, and we just did this. It's our Belhaven Neighborhood Action Plan. And part of the issue that came up high on this list for Belhaven was economic opportunity and job training, to pursue partnerships with local businesses to support internships, mentoring, and hiring. And that is something that is so important to all of us. So I'm happy that you're here today. I trust that this will be a fabulous panel, and thank you again to Congresswoman Spear for hosting this here today for us. I welcome Congresswoman Spear.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
You've gotten your coffee and apples and whatever other goodies we have back there. I'm honored to be here today to join you in what will be a program that we are going to host throughout the year about women. Because we know that when women in America succeed, everyone in America succeeds. And we are going to put a big spotlight on what's it going to take to make sure that women are able to succeed in this country. We know a lot. We've got lots of statistics. Maria Shriver joined us in Washington a few weeks ago, in which she unveiled the Shriver Report. And I encourage all of you to go online. You can download it online or read it online. It's a very thick document, but it's a comprehensive look at women in America. They've done polling, and they've really drilled down to find out what is it that women need. And some of the things are going to be pretty obvious to you, because in your own experiences, you have endured many of those challenges. But before getting into our program, I want to introduce to you the electeds who are here, who, as you know, dedicate a good portion of their life every day, every week, to represent their communities. And the fact that so many of them are here, I think, speaks volumes about their commitment to the community. So please welcome the mayor of Menlo Park, Ray Mueller. Ray. Ray, I want you to know that we love the fact that we have a number of men here today because we recognize that you are among the most enlightened men on the planet, and we particularly appreciate that. Let me also welcome East Palo Alto's Mayor Laura Martinez. And East Palo Alto's Vice Mayor Lisa Yarrow. Redwood City former Mayor and City Councilwoman Roseanne Faust. And Redwood City's former Mayor and City Councilwoman Alicia Aguirre. Alicia will be speaking very soon. We also have Menlo Park's Vice Mayor, Catherine Carlton. And San Mateo County's Deputy Mayor, Maureen Prescott. And from Supervisor Carol Groom's office, Judah Tomasoff. Now, anyone I forgot? Okay, very good. So, we do know that women are half of the workforce in this country today, and mothers are 2/3 of the breadwinners or co-breadwinners for American families. We also know that women make 70% of the consumer decisions in this country. 70%. So no surprise when we see the kind of targeting to women from time to time. And they make 80% of the healthcare decisions in this country. So if we're making 80% of the healthcare decisions, don't you think we should have some input into what those programs and products are for those in our family? Of the 100 million Americans who are in poverty or at the brink of poverty, 70 million of them are women and children. Very sobering. So that would suggest to us that not a lot has changed from 30 plus years ago when I was a county supervisor in San Mateo County, and I held the first hearing on the feminization of poverty. And what we learned from that hearing was that women were in poverty in no small part by the fact that court-ordered child support was not being paid. So I then went to the state legislature and I made a commitment that I was going to fix that. So the very first thing I did was carry legislation to provide that if you have a professional license in California and you don't pay your child support, you can lose your license. The first victim of that law was a physician in San Diego County who owed $100,000 of unpaid child support. And it wasn't until his medical license was threatened that he realized, oh, you know what? I owe child support. We also went after other licensees, and we even, we license virtually anything that moves in California, and we were licensing beekeepers, among many others. So there was a beekeeper's license who became challenged. He didn't care so much about losing his beekeeper's license, but he had a Harley Davidson. And he didn't want to lose that Harley Davidson. So he developed a plan for repayment. So then we went on and we said, if you have a driver's license in California and you don't pay your child support and you don't develop a plan to repay your child support, you could lose your driver's license. We then decided that the Franchise Tax Board is even more ferocious than the IRS in collecting taxes. So we empowered them to be the collector of last resort for child support purposes. And lo and behold, within 2 years after the law was in effect, over $2 billion was returned to families in California in unpaid child support. So, we know we can do things to fix problems. And child support enforcement across the country now is much better than it was 30 years ago, in part because we undertook that effort. And as you know, as goes California, so goes the country. Now, the other issue we know exists is that women get paid less for doing the same job. Women earn 77 cents for every dollar earned by a man in the same job. And that became crystal clear earlier this week when Leader Pelosi held a very similar event in San Francisco. And one of the women's speakers was a woman who graduated from graduate school, ended up competing with her husband, who had also graduated at the same time from graduate school, for a job. And lo and behold, they both got hired. And lo and behold, she got offered a salary $5,000 less than her husband, even though she had more experience in the profession before going to graduate school than her husband did. So I thought it was pretty interesting. He was in the audience that day with their young child, and I watched as she threw him under the bus, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Their marriage has survived, however. What's interesting about that pay gap, as bad as it is for white women, African American women, 64 cents for every dollar earned by a man. And Latinas, 55 cents for every dollar earned by a man. So we have got to address this. You might have heard about the Lilly Ledbetter Act. It was the first bill signed into law by President Obama. Lilly Ledbetter was this hardworking woman working for Goodyear. Goodyear was a government contractor, and she worked there for over 20 years. And right before she was about to retire, someone slipped a note to her in her mailbox at the office. The note didn't have any identification, except it showed the salary discrepancy between what she was making and what other managers were making in the company. So she sued. Went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, you know what, you should have acted on that when you were first hired. Now, how can you act on something that you don't know about, right? And Goodyear prohibited employees from discussing their salaries with each other. So the Lilly Ledbetter Act went so far as to say that you no longer can prohibit employees from sharing that kind of information. And that at the time you are first made aware of it is when the clock starts running in terms of filing an action. But that doesn't go far enough either. I'd like to go after every government contractor that discriminates based on gender. They should have those contracts yanked from them. We should just have equal pay for equal work, pure and simple. Now, another issue that we should really focus on is the minimum wage. The minimum wage in this country is woefully inadequate. The minimum wage in this country guarantees that you will be living in poverty. It guarantees that you will be able to access food stamps and Section 8 housing. And it creates an environment that the taxpayers of this country are subsidizing these big corporations. Should that be the case? Now, when we think of fast food chains, we think of minimum wage workers. And in our mind's eye, it typically is some high school student who's making some extra gas money or movie money. Not true. The average worker at McDonald's is a 28-year-old woman. In fact, if you look at the minimum wage, who is in fact getting the minimum wage, the majority are women. And what's interesting about this is that 80% of the American people believe in raising the minimum wage. So there was a bill pending in Congress this year by Congressman George Miller, who is retiring after 40 years in Congress, a congressman from the East Bay. And if that bill is passed, the minimum wage in the United States will be $10.10. Now here in California, the minimum wage does go up to $10 because we are just typically more enlightened than the rest of the country. But this week, as I've embarked on what my theme this year is in Congress, it's about income inequality. And I spent the evening at 2 shelters in our county, one in Redwood City and one in San Mateo. And I sat and talked to those who were staying in the shelter. And it probably won't surprise you to know that a lot of them, in fact, I would venture to say most of them, had jobs. One woman I talked to had just moved here with her husband from Alabama because he was going to get this great construction job. And then the construction job fell through because of some issues within the health issues of the general contractor who was going to hire him. So they found themselves homeless. He's working at Office Max. She's working at Safeway. And they're living in a homeless shelter. Riding bikes to work that are provided to them by the shelter. Making minimum wage. So we have a lot of work to do in that regard as well. Let me move on to affordable child care and paid leave. The paid maternity leave in this country is negligible. Again, California kind of leads the way. I was in the legislature and a co-author of the legislation that created the first paid family leave in the country. And it's state disability. You get 6 weeks of state disability insurance as paid leave, and then you get another 6 weeks. So in California, you get up to 12 weeks of paid family leave. But 88% of the women and 96% of the low-wage workers do not have access to paid family leave. That number is astronomical. And when you think about it, in most industrialized countries in the world, there is paid medical leave for families. And again, there is a bill in Congress to change that, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to do that. The other thing that came out in the Shriver Report that's very important to underscore is what women want more than anything else, and they polled this, so this is really strong data. They want paid sick leave. Paid sick leave is critical, more critical than virtually anything else. So it's incumbent on us to challenge the corporations in this region to make sure that they are offering paid medical leave. Now, affordable child care. Only about 18% of the eligible children actually receive the federally funded child care vouchers. 18%. There is a long list of eligible recipients in San Mateo County, and there just aren't the slots. Now, there are efforts underfoot here in California to create universal preschool for 4-year-olds. Again, if you look across the planet, the only industrialized country in the world that does not offer universal preschool to their kids. And we know it works. We know that Head Start works. For every dollar we invest in Head Start, it reaps so many benefits. The children are prepared for kindergarten. They move on successfully through school. They do not become one of the statistics that suggests that they end up in juvenile hall or the like. So why wouldn't we want to do the right thing? So that gives you a lot to chew on. Our pillars in Congress right now in promoting women are all around equal pay for equal work, paid medical leave, child care. So we're going to get on with our program, and I am thrilled to be able to introduce you to our first speaker. She has an outstanding career professionally and politically, and I have watched her with a great deal of awe and respect, and that's the former mayor and city councilwoman here in Redwood City area, Alicia Aguirre, and she's going to share with you her story and her observations on the challenges that many women in our community face as they work towards building a better life for themselves and for their families. So please put your hands together and welcome Alicia Aguirre.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this. It's such an honor. You know, when I was invited to speak to you, I was thinking, you know, I really want to tell you a little bit about my story. And even though I'm a former mayor, and you see me here, and I'm a professor at Kenyatta College, we all started in different places. My family immigrated here from Mexico, actually not here, Detroit, Michigan. And I was the oldest of 5. And I remember growing up that I didn't know that we were what was considered low income, right? I didn't realize that because my father worked at a factory, my mother worked very hard as well, but we were. And I remember getting my first Barbie doll from the Goodfellas. You know, they brought it at Christmas time, and it was such a gift. And I remember also when I was 15, I realized being the oldest, I was given a lot of responsibility, and the oldest kind of rules in culturally and in my family. And I remember telling my father, you know, we used to get an allowance, I think it might have been 75 cents a week. And I said, I don't need it anymore, Dad. And he said, what do you mean? He said, no, I don't need it anymore. I'm going to start working. And I started working. I think I sold Avon. I remember babysitting, cleaning houses, and all the things that I did. And helping my younger brothers and sisters and realizing that I needed to do something to improve things in my family. Well, I went on to school, and I think the best thing that my parents instilled in me is education. And they said, Alicia, you might not have a lot of, you know, riches and a home, but that will never be taken away from you. And so I did that. And I had people along the way that said, you know what, if you get your BA, you can get your MA. And I remember hearing Congresswoman Spear at an event saying to women and to people, don't wait to be tapped. Go on and do what you need to do. But there were amazing people along the way that did tap my shoulder and said, why don't you go on and get a master's? And I thought, wait a minute, I am the first one in my family to get a college degree, a BA, and now you want me to get a master's. Okay, so I went on and I got my master's. And by the way, I did work 3 or 4 jobs while I was going to school. It was just part of what you needed to do, you know, just the things that you needed to do, especially when I had 4 younger brothers and sisters. There's no way that my parents would have paid college. And someone else tapped me on my shoulder and said, why don't you go on and get a PhD? And again, it wasn't something that maybe some of us ever heard. Maybe our parents didn't tell us that we could do these things culturally or within our families, because maybe they didn't reach it, even though my mother was a teacher. But it was someone that moved forward. And sometimes those folks that were doing that because they see something in you. And I hope that each one of you know that someone is seeing something in you, and that's why you're here. You didn't just happen to come here, you were chosen. Someone said something and you decided to be here. And that's what's going to make it really, really special as you move on. You know, I teach at Kenyatta College. I have students as yourself. I admire them every single day. They work really hard. They raise a family. Some of them are single parents, and they work as hard as the things that Congresswoman said. And you know, I went through that myself. And I remember being a single mom with 2 kids and not getting my child support. And it was very, very tough. And I'm a very proud woman, and I did not want anyone to know that I needed the money. and I needed the money. And I remember asking a best friend for money. I could not ask my parents. That would be, my pride was I couldn't ask my parents for that. And I asked a friend, and a woman helped me with my rent. And those are the struggles that you go through. And at that time, I felt my self-esteem was so low, you could step on me and you wouldn't see me. And what do you do when you're in those moments to pick yourself up and say, you know what, I'm going to move ahead because I have 2 beautiful sons, and that's my motivation. And I was able to do that and work hard. I know I taught extra classes at Cañada. I did everything I could to get out of that. Because sometimes you're in that hole and it's so easy to stay there and poor me and who's going to help me and move ahead. And I did. And I'm very, very lucky to have a wonderful job, to have a wonderful husband, to be able to be, yesterday I was telling someone I got an email from my IT person saying, congratulations, you've been on the city, working for the city for 9 years. So this is an amazing story for my life, and I know that each one of you has a struggle that way. But you know, because you were here, your responsibility is to go out and bring people to events like this and to learn what's going on and to make it for yourself and to feel, you know what, no matter how far down I am, I can find something, and education is going to get you there. Opportunities. I went to food banks. I don't have a problem saying that. I went to things that needed. I took my kids to Payless shoe stores and Savers when I couldn't buy them the newest clothes. I'm okay with that. And whatever it is that you need, and if it is a friend, and if it's another person that helps you move ahead, make sure you look for your resources and don't be another number of the statistics that were given today by Councilmember Keith. Don't let your children be those statistics. And empower yourself and looking for all these opportunities. We live in a land of opportunity, and all of these things are here to help us. So I'm here to encourage you to take advantage. I'm excited to hear about the stories because I hear these stories from my students every day. And I thank you for being here because you're going to make our community so much better. Thank you.
Very inspiring. Thank you, Alicia, really. You know, it's really through stories, particularly for women, that we learn and we grow. Women are fabulous storytellers, and numbers don't begin to speak like stories do. So Alicia, thank you very much. And I guess having heard you and be inspired by you, I just want you to know that each of you, don't ever think that you are alone. And don't ever think it's just happening to you. I was a single mom for 8 years. I was 3 months from personal bankruptcy when my husband was killed in an automobile accident, and I was pregnant with our second child. So like you, I know what it's like to panic and feel like, oh my God, what am I going to do? But there's resources there for each and every one of us to help pick us up and help us take the next steps.